Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Is everyone able to hear me and see me? And the participants, so your microphone is not enabled, but the chat is enabled. So you should be able to type into the chat. I can see that some of you typed yes. Nobody says yes. Good. Shlok, Pranav, excellent. And are you also able to see the presentation? The presentation that says importance of critical thinking in math and language. Perfect. Okay. Excellent. Good to hear that. All right, so it's 3:16. Let's get started. Good afternoon, everyone, again. Welcome to this webinar on importance of critical thinking in math and language. My name is Ram Yeleti, and I'll just speak for the first few minutes introduction and wrap up in 5 minutes, last 5 minutes. But the main presenters today are Dr. Brian Lack and Mrs. Jordan Kohanim. I'll do their introduction in a couple of minutes. So, as many of you from across the country may be interacting with Maths Academy for the first time directly, some of your kids might have taken our tests, and some of your kids may have even attended our classes, but I also presume many of you are here for the first time interacting directly with Maths Academy. So, I'll give a brief introduction of what is Maths Academy, what do we do, and I'll do the introductions to Dr. Lack and Mrs. Kohanim, and they will be the main speakers. So I will hand over to Dr. Lack probably around 3:25 p.m. Eastern Time, and Dr. Lack will hand over to Mrs. Kohanim around 4:10. We'll wrap up at 5 p.m. Right? So this is one of my favorite quotes from a gentleman by name Plutarch, who lived about 2000 years back, uh, from AD 46 to 120. And he said, mind is not a vessel to be filled, but a fire to be ignited. And I feel it's as true today as it has ever been. And it's this a universal truth. Um, and at Maths Academy, we truly believe in this. That obviously knowledge is important, and we try to uh, learn and we try to impart knowledge to our children. But you need to understand the knowledge is only part of it. It's really the potential. Every child has, we believe, an infinite potential within them. And our goal is to uh, help ignite that fire so that they can discover it themselves. I see one of the comments that audio is not good. Is that true for everyone? How about all others? Can you hear me clearly? Okay, I'll try. It's a little low. I'll try to be a little louder. Is it better now? Okay, perfect. Okay, all right. I'll be a little louder. And Dr. Lack and Mrs. Kohanim, they are more professionals in this field than me, and they have louder voices than me, so it should be good. And sorry, there's a typo. I tried to type maths as in the Sanskrit, so the click meeting presentation somehow converted, put a zero in between. So I often get this question: are you maths or maths? They are both. It's actually madhas. It's a Sanskrit word, madhas, pronounced as madhas, uh, which doesn't have a direct exact translation, but its closest meaning intelligence, wisdom, and understanding. And our goal is to help kids find their inner potential and reach understanding. And also in English, we write it as maths. Uh, when I first started, I thought it was cute, but not sure whether it's right or wrong decision. It spells like math. Yes, it is really maths. Um and our mission is to help bring the best out of children. We truly believe that every kid has infinite potential, and we do a number of things to help parents. Often it's the parents who can do that, to enable parents to help the children, as well as we do some activities directly where we can help children. And our vision is to uh, touch a million lives, to positively impact a million children across the world, uh, who in turn will shape our future. We try to impact in a number of ways. This webinar is one such means. We also try to uh, we conduct classes, we conduct many tests, and I'll talk about some of the activities that we do. And we try to create an environment where children can excel academically and to help nurture their full potential. And we also try to get like-minded people uh, like Dr. Lack, Mrs. Kohanim, and other teachers who come together uh, to help the children, and in the process, they feel fulfilled. And we, uh, all our teachers come together at Maths Academy because they're passionate about sharing their passion for whatever subject that they are experts in. And so it's not, you don't treat it as uh, as a medium or a business. It's really to fulfill our um, passion and to work with the children. So what are some of the things that we do to meet that vision is we conduct some of the classes some of you might have seen. We conduct Math Genius, Math Core. In math, we have those two different offerings. One is more critical thinking math, the other on uh, the common core math. We have language, writing, and public speaking classes, as well as SAT and PSAT, AP classes, science and neuroscience, etc. We also conduct summer camps. Those are more on-site. The classes we have both on-site as well as online. On-site in Atlanta area and online across the country. And the tests usually we conduct in March period. One, the Math Genius Critical Thinking Math National Contest, and we also do Math Core Georgia Milestones. In Georgia, we call Georgia Milestones. It's really common core prep test across the country. So we also have a blog, mathsacademy.com. The website that you visited is also our blog. We have a lot of educational info that's useful for parents and students. You will find information related to different math contests or science competitions like uh, Intel and Siemens Science Awards. There are also many videos. There is a series of 6 videos. I actually did a summer camp a few years back called Discover the Beauty of Math. Um, it is to help children see the beauty in math and get interested in math. So you will find a number of such things on the blog. Um, and we also, our past Math Genius National Contests, we post all the papers available for free there. You can download and have your children look at them and practice. And we conduct educational webinars such as the one today. And we also support local schools and other educational nonprofit organizations like North-South Foundation. We support them with volunteer activity as well as contributions. So going back to critical thinking, which is today's topic, which goes back to the first uh, quote of Plutarch. What does education mean? Interestingly, it came from a Latin word, educare, which means to bring out or to draw forth, uh, which strongly correlates with what Plutarch said, that the mind uh, is not a vessel to be filled, but a fire to be ignited. That there is potential all inside. Our goal is to help bring it out, to draw forth. And that's what we think critical thinking is. So we need, as part of education, you impart knowledge, but that's just part of it. The real goal is to help bring up the critical thinking in the kids. So Gopal Krishnan, he said, "Sir, I'm trying to connect to you. Are you connected? Are you able to hear me?" Not sure what you mean. All right. So introduction: Dr. Brian Lack is a PhD in early education. Is the math curriculum specialist at Forsyth County Board of Education, one of the top counties in the country, and is also math counts coordinator for North Georgia chapter. He's on the board of Georgia Council of Teachers of Mathematics. He conducts many prestigious math competitions such as Pi Fight. He's the chief judge of our own Math Genius National Critical Thinking Math Contest, and he also helps develop math curriculum and teaches at Maths Academy. And Mrs. Jordan Kohanim is an award-winning English teacher. She teaches at North High School in Johns Creek, Georgia, the top-rated school in Georgia. She's teacher of the year for multiple years at different schools, and she's also the teacher mentor. She's passionate about writing and public speaking, and she coaches them at the school as well as other places. She helps develop writing and public speaking curriculum and teaches at Maths Academy. Okay, yeah, I know some of you said his voice is lagging, but others are okay. So it could be internet. So as long as you are able to hear and see, please be patient. So sometimes I know I've seen the webinar tools. It depends on the bandwidth, local bandwidth. Okay, so at this time, I will hand over to Dr. Brian Lack, and I'll go on mute. Dr. Lack, over to you.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you can hear me well. If you can, please give me a yes. And bear with me real quick. I'm going to close this presentation and I'm going to attempt to share my desktop. All right, so I'm going to talk to you for the next few minutes about critical thinking and math. For those of you who are on Twitter, I am at Dr. Brian Lack. I'm very engaged in the mathematics education community. So follow me if you like what you hear and see today, you can follow me on Twitter for more stuff like this. Let's go ahead and jump in. This is a list of the most valued workplace skills in 1970, according to Fortune 500. And what do you notice? You can see that I've highlighted computational skills and problem solving. So back in 1970, computation skills clearly trumped problem solving ability in terms of importance. Fast forward to about 30 years later, and the reverse is true. All right, the implications for school curriculum and standards is obvious, which is why from 1970 to 2000 and then today, we've seen a much greater emphasis on problem solving, um, and still an emphasis on basic skills, but the emphasis has definitely reversed. All right, fast forward to modern day, and you look at this top 10 skills according to the Future of Jobs report from the World Economic Forum, and what do you notice? Complex problem solving, critical thinking, creativity are the top skills that are valued in the workplace in 2020. Cognitive flexibility is also in the top 10. Unfortunately, these characteristics don't always get prioritized in school curricula because there's such a great emphasis on mastering basic or meeting minimum standard expectations. So there is a much greater emphasis, particularly with the Common Core and the new standards for critical thinking, complex problem solving, and creativity. But again, not necessarily the priority in schools. So the question becomes, how do I challenge my child outside of school? This is one of the most frequently asked questions that I get as an educator and a curriculum specialist, particularly where I live, where the academic expectations are high. So I'm going to discuss my response to this question by addressing it in 3 dimensions. Number 1, acceleration and enrichment. Number 2, routine versus non-routine problem solving. And number 3, the importance of teaching concepts, not just teaching math as rules and procedures to memorize. All right. So let's start with acceleration and enrichment. Acceleration and enrichment are 2 approaches that come out of the field of gifted education. When you're dealing with students who are high performing, high intelligence, 2 basic approaches you can take to meet their needs academically is that you can accelerate curriculum delivery, or you can, or I should say, you can enrich the content that you deliver to them. Oftentimes, acceleration and enrichment are thought of as mutually exclusive approaches, which is actually not true. It's possible to do both, and I'll show you how. But first, let's talk about acceleration in terms of school math. Let's look at the topic of addition, in particular, the progression of addition in school from grades 1 through 4. So the emphasis in grades 1 through 4 with respect to addition is on learning strategies and algorithms to compute sums of progressively larger numbers. So in first grade, we're dealing with the expectation that students will be able to add 2-digit numbers. In second grade, they move to a combination of 2- and 3-digit numbers. And then by 4th grade, the expectation is they will be able to add multi-digit numbers using the standard algorithm that we teach here. And so with an acceleration approach, let's say you have a child who is 7 years old in first grade. They master this 1 MBT4. So you could say, well, why don't we go ahead and we can move to the second grade expectation. And if they master that, then we can just simply increase the magnitude of the numbers, increase the number of digits, and teach them how to add and subtract with strategies and algorithms with progressively larger numbers. So we're teaching the same amount of content they would get, or the same content they would get between first and 4th grade. We're just teaching it faster. All right. So the question is then, something you might be asking is it even possible to infuse critical thinking with computations like these? And that's a good question. The answer is yes, and there's a lot of different ways to do it. We do a lot of that at Mathis Academy and the Math Genius courses. Let's look at one way. Okay, so what you're looking at now is we've got the digits of 3-digit add-ins, 3-digit add-ins have been replaced with letters, and each letter stands for a different number. Now, this problem, just so you know, was taken from the Hunter College School grade 6 entrance exam, all right? So the caveat is you typically don't see problems like this in school curricula or on state tests. The Hunter College School is a prestigious institution in New York. But so this is a way that we can infuse critical thinking with computation. So I'm going to give you just a few seconds here to think about this problem. Try to solve this problem. What are the numbers that represent letters A, B, and C? All right, and so what we're going to do is we're going to think out loud about the solution process. I'm going to model one possible way to approach this problem out of many. The first thing I notice is that we have three A's in the hundreds place of the add-ins. So the three A's add up to 20, but I know that 20 is not a multiple of 3, so there must be a carryover here. So if you think, well, let's see, 3 times what is as close to 20 as we can get? It's 6, okay? So we know that A is equal to 6. And we have a carryover of 2 in the hundreds place that's coming from the sum of the tens. Well, we also know that all of the other A's equal 6, and so we've unlocked a lot of the solution to this problem. All right, so now let's look at the tens place. We have 6 plus 6 is 12, all right, but 6 plus 6 plus B, whatever it is, it's got to end in a 1. It's got to have a 1 in the units digit, all right, the units place. So we know 6 plus 6 is 12, so we're thinking B, maybe B is 9, right? Because 6 plus 6 is 12 plus 9 is 21. That gives us our carryover 2, which is perfect. But if it's 9, then if B is 9, then we look at the ones place and we see, oh, 6 plus 9 is already 15. We're going to have a carryover. That's going to ruin our theory. So B can't be 9, all right? So we know that 6 plus B plus either a carryover of 1 or 2 equals 21. So we know from that either B has to be either 7 or 8, all right? And so we try 7, okay? 6 plus 6 plus 7, all right, that's 19. We would need a carryover 2, that gives us 21. And now we look at the ones place. 6 plus 7 is 13. Obviously, an 8 would go there. All right, and so we've solved this problem. Okay, now the problem-solving approach was kind of messy, right? If there wasn't necessarily a straightforward procedure or routine formula that we could apply to quickly solve this, we had to use a little bit of what we call non-routine problem solving. So what is the difference between routine and non-routine problems? Typically what we see in school curricula is, if I had to estimate, I'd say 95% of what you see in school curricula is going to be routine problem solving. And that just simply stresses the use of sets of known or prescribed procedures or rules or formulas or algorithms to solve problems. A lot of what we do in critical thinking math involves non-routine problem solving, which by contrast stresses the use of heuristics, all right, and often requires little or no use of algorithms. So what you might think of as guess and check or educated guess and check, casework, things like that make up non-routine problem solving. Okay, so let's just take a look at one more problem real quick. All right, this is a very typical problem that we would have in our Math Genius courses. Would you use an algorithm or a heuristic to solve or tackle this problem? Use 7 consecutive digits, place them in the boxes. They don't have to be in any order to make this addition equation true. Think about it for a moment. All right, what's the greatest possible sum of a 2-digit plus 2-digit add-in, right? Well, let's see, 99 plus 99 gives us 198. So we know that in the sum, we've got a 1 in the hundreds place. We know that to be true. So if we think about all the consecutive strings of digits that we could use, well, we could use 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1 through 7, 2 through 8, and 3 through 9. Well, now we already know we can eliminate these bottom 2 strings, right? Because we know a 1 has to be in the sum, in the hundreds place of the sum. So now we just use, some reasoning, some number sense, a little bit of guess and check, We look at the tens place. We start reasoning, okay, what could go here out of the numbers that I have left? I have two strings that I could use. Um, let's say I put a 4 here. I'm just trying some numbers. The tens place, the sum in the tens place, they can't have a 7, a 6, a 5, or a 4 because you'd need the add-ins to be 65 and 75 at least to get to that magnitude. So um, we try 4, we try 7, but then we realize, okay, that's probably not going to work. Okay. Um, 7 plus 4 is 11. We've already used a 1 unless it's a carryover in the tens place. Turns out the solution to this problem, one of the solutions could be 62 plus 43, which equals 105. So 7 digits that we would use would be 0 through 6. And you can swap these around. We could have 63 plus 42. And so there's not just one answer to this problem. And that's another feature of non-routine problems. They typically sometimes one solution. So you would use a heuristic to solve that problem, all right? A non-routine, a very, very good case of a non-routine problem. All right, so if we move on, so everything I've said so far kind of begs the question, how do I promote more critical thinking with my child, especially given that school curricula tends to focus on, like I said, routine types of problem solving. So we're going to start to address this question with what not to do rather than what to do. And I'm very passionate about this ever since I was educated to become a teacher. You cannot simply teach math as rules and memorization. It's much richer than that. As Ron was saying, it's such a beautiful subject, and it's not just about rules and procedures. So one of the guiding principles I use when I train teachers in my district is don't just teach rules and procedures. When you teach math in isolation or rules or procedures in isolation, they kind of become tricks to be memorized, and they're easily forgotten too. And it certainly doesn't help the kids understand the meaning or the concepts behind the operation. So we're going to try to teach them to think rather than just memorize. So we're going to teach the why as well as the what. All right. So one of my favorite math teachers in the world is a guy named Greg Tang. You may be familiar with him. He's an award-winning mathematics-themed children books. The most popular is probably math. You don't have any of these, and you have, honestly, it doesn't matter if you have young children or old children. Across the country every year. He recently did a TEDx talk in which he argues there are the three most important alternatives to simply memorizing rules and procedures in math. Uh, um, and they are visualization, reasoning, and number sense. And I'm going to argue these three characteristics are integral to the art of critical thinking in math. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over and I'm going to play just all right. So I am going to go over to a video. And here it comes. So with that, again, that was Greg Tang, his TEDx talk, and that was just about a 10-minute excerpt of the actual talk, which is about 20 minutes, and you can find that on YouTube. I'm going to go back to my presentation, and we're going to close out here with just talking a little bit more in greater detail about those three principles: um, visualization, reasoning, and number sense. Okay, in a little bit greater context, a deeper context. So, all right, we're back to the presentation. Again, visualization, reasoning, and number sense. What I'm going to argue are the keys to critical thinking. So let's do a little number trick together, okay? I want everybody at home to choose a secret number between 0 to 9, all right? Now I want you to add 3. Now double your number. Now add 2. Take half of your number away. Now subtract the secret number you started with. All right. And if you want, you can type your number into the chat box and tell us what you have. Yes. Thank you, Lakshmi, and everybody else. Everybody should have 4. Now, is that to say that you all chose the same secret number at the beginning? That would be really unlikely, right? So this seems like magic almost. And so naturally, with a number trick, the natural response is, whoa, how did that work, right? And that's really what we want students to naturally, how we want them to respond to all mathematics problems, okay? And this is a particularly enticing one. So with visualization, one of the things that I would do as a math teacher is to teach them to visualize by modeling this. So choosing a secret number, you can use this envelope as a metaphor. Pretend that you've chosen your secret number and you've inserted it into this envelope and no one can see it, all right? And so I gave you 10 choices, 0 to 9. Now add 3. So when I've done this in class, I've had students use paper clips to represent constants. So now everybody has 3 more than their secret number. Then I told you to double your sum, double what you had. So you basically just take a copy of what you have, 1 envelope and 3 clips, and you duplicate it. So now everybody has double their secret number plus 6. Add 2, we add 2 more paper clips, so now everyone has 8 more than their secret number. Then I told you to take half of your number away. So you remove 1 row, you're left with 1 envelope and 4 paper clips. And then I told you, lastly, subtract your secret number. So take the envelope away, and what is everybody left with? 4 paper clips. All right? So I've used a drawing or perhaps a concrete representation of envelopes and paper clips. And the next step would be to tie that to the abstract. So an envelope is n, adding 3 is n plus 3, doubling what we have, all right? An n plus 3 and an n plus 3 together make 2 n's and a 6. Adding 2, now we have 8 more than 2n. Take away half of what you have, n plus 4. And then finally, taking away the secret number or the n leaves us with 4. So that's a way that we can teach these abstract algebraic processes and procedures uh, and we can that with visualization to help it make. All right, looks like my audio is back. Can you guys hear me? I apologize for that. I'm not sure exactly what happened. Hopefully it will stay with me here. So this is the part where part that we use as teachers for developing deep understanding of mathematics. And it all comes down to how we represent mathematics. If you look over here, written symbols uh, at the far right, that's the intentions, problem-based learning, and then a lot of rich discussion and writing about mathematics too. All right. So we go on to number sense. All right, number sense. Number sense is kind of this elusive thing that some of us feel either we have or we don't. I'm going to quote Greg Tang here. If you look at this image, this is a subtraction procedure. We talked about subtracting across zeros. Greg Tang has said, does this type of practice make you great at subtraction? The answer is no. It doesn't make you great at subtraction. It makes you great at the procedure. All right, this particular procedure. No critical thinking is required to do this, especially once it becomes more of a rote process. So what might subtraction look like from the lens of critical thinking, where we can also talk about number sense? All right. Place any digit 1 through 9 in the boxes to create the smallest possible difference. Each digit can be used only once. So this
Hey guys, so I'm just going to check really quickly if you guys could put a little smiley face in the chat area to make sure that you can hear. Having some problems. There's a smiley face. Yay! I got to tell you guys, I'm really used to presenting in front of a live audience, and so right now I'm staring at a computer screen, kind of talking to myself, so those smiley faces, if you can give them to me occasionally just to let me know that you hear me, and feel free at any point in time to ask questions. I may not be able to answer immediately because, as we've noticed, there's a little bit of a lag, and I'm looking at the window in my office. I'm in Roswell. I don't know how many of you guys are in the sort of North Fulton area, but right now we've got some crazy storms coming at us, so if I blank out, just stay with me. I love all the smiley faces. Thank you. Volume-wise, am I okay? Everyone good? Okay, fantastic. Hopefully I don't shout. The complaint I get most often is that I'm a bit of a shouter. I guess I'm used to teaching high school, so you have to kind of yell at them in order to get their attention. Hopefully I'm not yelling at you. Okay, so let me take a look and see if I can pull up my presentation. Brian, I think you're going to have to let go of control, and then I should be able to pick it up from there. Okay, all right. So let's see. All right, so you should see on your screen right now there's a title page that says Importance of Developing Critical Thinking and Language. You with me? Okay, so let's go through this. If I talk to you quickly, just let me know, hey, slow down. I'm a speech coach, so I have a tendency to talk really fast. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. Ron was nice to introduce me, and he was probably a little bit too complimentary, but just to give you some idea of what it is that I do, I am extremely passionate about the importance of speech and debate and the importance of language and writing skills. I think that it's one of those things that sadly is becoming a lost art. And that's unfortunate because the people who end up becoming leaders in our country and leaders in our society are the people who can communicate well. I try to coach kids of all ages how to do this particular activity. I have been teaching in Fulton County for 10 years. I have coached speech and debate for 9 of those years. I'm an English language arts teacher. I teach honors level at Northview High School, and I'm also AP certified. So obviously language is important for me. Oh, I have sad face. Oh no. Okay, tell me what's going on. Am I too fast? So that's who I am. If you have any questions as we're going, like I said, just go ahead and let me know. So this is the way that I like to start a lot of my presentations. The number one fear in America. What do you guys think the number one fear in America is? If we were to walk down the street and we were to ask people, what's your number one fear? Guess what their response is? It's not death. Nope, death's actually number 2. The world ending? Anil said numbers. Me too. I'm with numbers. That whole thing Brian just did, I was like, oh. Yes. Okay, so the number one fear in America is actually public speaking. Number 2 is death, which I find kind of hilarious because that means that people would rather be standing or rather be in the casket than actually standing in front of people giving the eulogy. So that should tell you a lot about this particular skill. Number 1 fear in America is public speaking. Number 2 is death. So then the question is, well, why do we want to do this? Why would that be something that's important? You know, it's the number 1 fear. Do we want to subject our kids to it? And the quick answer is absolutely. Public speaking helps your student become more confident. It helps them participate more fluidly in discussion. I'll tell you a quick little story. I teach at Northview High School, which is an extremely academically focused school. They are scholastic resolve in that school is phenomenal, but they are also a minority majority school in that the majority of our population is Asian, East Asian. So they have been taught that they are supposed to be quiet and listen to the teacher, which unfortunately means that they don't participate fluidly in a lot of activities, and that can come to their detriment. I've had a student come to me before who, great GPA, fantastic resume, and she said, "Can you write me a rec letter for college?" And I said, I don't remember you. I don't remember her participating in a class. I felt horrible about it. But it happens all the time, is that our students have a tendency to feel as though they need to sit and be quiet and be passive in their learning. Public speaking allows them to become more confident. They're able to advocate more, and that's essential in any academic environment, no matter what. So it's important that you're able to get your message across, and it teaches them to advocate for themselves. Taking that idea and extending it to the future, if you think about your company, whether it's in sales or you're in the tech industry, no matter what, if you're going to be a leader in this country, you have to be able to speak in front of people. If you want to move from an entry-level position, you have to be comfortable enough and feel as though you can dialogue well enough that you're able to be a manager over other people. In fact, I'm actually going to pull up on my phone the slide that Brian had, because it spoke so perfectly to my presentation. So thinking back to the skills in 2015, the ones from Forbes magazine, number 1 is complex problem solving, or I'm sorry, 2020. Number 1 is complex problem solving. Number 2 is critical thinking. Number 3 is creativity. Number 4 is people management, coordinating with others, service orientation, negotiation. All of those have to do with the interpersonal skills of being able to talk to somebody. And then in the other slide that he showed us, number 1 most valued workplace skill from Fortune 500 was teamwork. Number 3, interpersonal skills. 4, oral communication. 5, listening skills. 8, leadership. 10, writing. So all of the things that I'm really passionate about were in those top 10 skill lists of what we see that companies want. So in the future, in order to make money, you have to be comfortable with public speaking, with being able to write. And it trains your brain in a different way. So when we talk about the idea of society and what critical thinking skills can do and what they can teach us, I'm just going to read you a quote. This is by Yankiewicz. He says, "Critical thinking and argument skills, the abilities to both generate and critique arguments, are crucial elements in decision making. In all careers, academic classes, and relationships, argument skills can be used to enhance learning when we treat reasoning as a process of argumentation." And this is what's really interesting. He says, as fundamentally dialogical. When you see problem-solving skills, similar to what Brian was saying, not as a procedure, first 1, then 2, then 3, and you view it in a different, more visual way as a dialogue with the things in front of you, then you're able to think outside the box. And that's the type of problem that we are trying to prepare our students for in the future. Public speaking and writing under constrained situations actually teaches them to think in a different way. It trains their brain in an entirely different way. So this is a quote, and I'll let you read that one on your own. I won't read it to you, from Robert Scher. This speaks to what I just said, and that's ultimately people in the future, our kids in the future. We don't know what their jobs are going to look like. We have no idea, and we're trying to prepare them. This activity, public speaking, debate, writing in timed writing situations, going through and being able to think quickly under pressure, those are all predictors of leadership. Kids who are able to do that, no matter what situation that you put them in, no matter what critical thinking situation, they're going to be able to go on that fast track to leadership. And those are the people that you need to be out on the lookout for, which is what I teach my kids. This is my debate students' favorite quote. They love citing this to their parents. This is from the Wall Street Journal. I'll let you read that one. quick check-in for me. Can you give me a smiley? Make sure you guys are still hearing me, okay? Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, so you guys will see, and what my debate team, what my speech kids really, really focus in on is that what I've got highlighted there in red is that, yes, they have a 22 to 30% higher acceptance rate to top tier colleges and a 60% compared to the rest of the pool. And I will tell you this from a personal anecdote standpoint. Northview is known as the sort of tech effect. A lot of our students go to Georgia Tech, and we actually, whenever Georgia Tech recruiters come to Northview High School, we have to go into the auditorium because so many students are interested in hearing from Georgia Tech that we actually can't hold it in the media center where we normally would. And the recruiter came, I think it was last year, it may have been the year before, but they came and the students are allowed to ask questions. One student raised their hand and said, I'm trying to get into Georgia Tech. What is the activity that I need to participate in? What does Georgia Tech want to see on my resume? And without a pause, the Georgia Tech recruiter said speech and debate. So that should tell you something, that Georgia Tech has basically said, this is what we want to see, because it trains their brain to think in a different way. It trains them to be able to think on their feet and to think critically in new ways. Okay, so when we talk about the idea of writing and language, when I say speech and debate, I actually mean writing too. What I coach has to do with being able to sit down in a timed situation and be able to write something quickly, whether that is for a competition, a speech competition, or if it's for something like an AP course, or if it's something like you're in a social studies class and you have to write an essay in class. All of those things are what I coach. I coach being able to sit down with a topic and respond to it quickly. So I tell my kids that you need to think about the constraints of time and topic not as something that's holding you back, but as something that is giving you the opportunity to be creative. This particular quote about Monet, I think, really speaks to the idea of what he did well with his creativity. The fact that he was able to limit himself to a very specific thing and then get creative within those constraints, that truly opened him up as an innovator in art. And our students can do it as well. So when you sit them down with a timed writing topic, being able to say, I'm only allowed to write in this time period, and I am only allowed to write about this particular thing, they need to view that as fueling their creativity. Okay, so this slide got a little messed up, but what it's supposed to say is being able to view the topic as an opportunity and not a constraint. I tell my students they need to narrow their focus, and I'm going to explain what I mean by that in a minute. This is with any topic. I encourage them to look at the topic itself and find what I call our strong words, using the topic to speak back to itself and to mark on that topic. With younger students, I say focus on 2 subpoints. With older students, I tell them to focus on 3 subpoints. When we talk about the idea of the rule of 3, the rule of 3 is very important, largely because our brains, neurologically speaking, are able to chunk information into 3 subsets, and that's it. That's where the brain stops. It stops at 3 subsets. So we need to be sure that when we're writing or speaking, that we are following that constraint of the rule of 3. We can give larger ideas, but we need to break it down into chunks of 3. So looking at a topic, you need to be able to figure out what the 3 aspects of that topic are in order for you to proceed. Now, like I said, I coach all different ages. With younger students, and by younger I mean usually under 7th grade and below, I'll say don't focus on 3, only focus on 2. Remember, 3 is the max, so you can focus on 2 and that's fine. So take a look. This is an example of a North-South Foundation junior topic. And this is what they tell them for their speech. And the writing topics are similar to this as well. Older student topics are a little bit more advanced, but this is what it looks like. So I'm going to ask you guys, and you're just going to type in the little chat down there, What do you think the two main ideas are that they need to focus on? Good. You guys are getting it. Try to use the language in the prompt. So not just what and how. What words? Find the actual words in the prompt. I told you to circle on there. Ah, there you go. You guys are such good students. Yes. Yes, excellent. You guys got it. Okay, so you said the what and the how, but that's pretty much what, as a judge, I would focus on as well, is what is the project and how will it help? Especially when we talk about the idea of the less fortunate, right? That's really what we need to focus on. Going back to the Aristotelian idea, if we're talking about Aristotle and the rule of three, Aristotle says that there's ethos, logos, and pathos. Ethos, I'm an expert. Logos is logic, and pathos is emotion. So if we talk about ethos, I'm an expert, logos, which is logic, pathos, which is emotion, of those three, which one do you think Aristotle said was the strongest, the most important of those three? Everyone's on a different page. All of them. You got to split it. You got to pick one. He said one was the most important. Most important. Yeah, so a lot of you guys got it as pathos. He said pathos is the most important. So ethos, establishing expert opinion, is actually the least important. You can actually establish ethos by using logos and pathos. So I tell my students, you want to make sure that you actually end with your pathos. You're going to start with your logic, but you're going to end with your pathos. And if you think of modern day advertising and modern day sales, almost all of it appeals to your pathos. They have figured out in the industry that the way that you get someone to understand and want to buy your product is to appeal to that pathos. They'll throw logos in there and occasionally ethos, but for the most part, they appeal to pathos. So that's essentially what I teach my kids, is that they need to appeal to pathos. That being said, the way that you outline your argument, that has to do with logic, because if it's simply an emotional appeal, but no logical way to move from point to point, you're going to lose your audience. So this is an example of an outline that I teach my students. And it doesn't matter if this is in speech or writing. This particular outline you can use over and over again. Where it says pivot point, if this were a speech, it would be something that they would actually move through the room. Okay? That is an outline of an essay. Exactly right. When you're giving a speech, I tell my students, you want to have only 3 real sentences in your speech. Your hook needs to be a sentence, your thesis needs to be a sentence, and your parting thought needs to be a sentence, and the rest of it needs to just be ideas. You need to, going back to the idea of having a dialogical, critical understanding, have a dialogue with your audience. That's one thing that's very difficult for people to understand about public speaking. If you approach public speaking as, I am going to give a presentation, I am going to give a speech, then you're going to lose your audience off of the bat. You're having a conversation with your audience, as I'm having a conversation with you right now. And if you don't acknowledge your audience, if they do not feel as though you are responding to them, then you're going to lose them, which makes this whole me talking to a webcam very strange. Okay, so looking at the outline, this is absolutely the same thing as an outline for an essay that I would use for a speech. But you'll notice that it's a lot shorter than you might use for a longer essay. Okay, thank you, smiley faces. You're making me feel better. Okay, So this is what I teach them as far as how you allot your time. Okay, so 30 minutes total, and for the older speech students, they actually get about 55 minutes. 30 minutes, I tell them, spend that time brainstorming and outlining, and then practice for 10, write and revise. Okay, so when you're giving a speech, you're just going to outline, you're not going to write the essay, you're just going to outline, practice for 10, and then do it again and again until it's time for you to go, because they get 30 minutes to prepare. Unfortunately, a lot of students, because they feel the pressure of, oh my gosh, I have to deliver something very, very quickly, they sit down and they start sort of throwing up information onto a piece of paper, and then when they deliver the speech, it doesn't sound like a speech, it sounds like an essay. And that's not what a speech is. And so speech and debate, you have to teach them, you have to use the nervousness that you feel to your advantage. And forcing yourself to read off a card is not going to do that. So this is what it would look like if you were giving an actual speech. And this is taken from one of my speech students. She let me copy it down. She's a 6th grader. So thank you, Ashi. And she had some really great ideas, and she did exactly what I told her to do. She started off with logos, which is that second pivot point. She explained what it was, what she would do, what the impact would be. And then her third pivot point there, she says, this has to help people. The goal of this is to help the homeless. So she appealed to that pathos, which Aristotle would love, because he says that's the strongest of those three. So when we talk about the idea of a pivot point, essentially what students do in these speech and debate competitions is they start off with their introduction and conclusion in the same area. So they begin introducing themselves, they give a hook statement, they give their thesis statement, then they move, literally walk in the room to pivot point number 1. From there, they give their first body paragraph, going back to where you see it says the cost of bottled water is minimal and can be bought in bulk. The impact for those who don't have clean water is maximized by how it rehydrates, reduces illness, and provides water to bathe. Then they would physically walk to the next pivot point. How will it help and who will it help? So that's the one that's appealing to the pathos. So this is where Ashi talked about homeless people rarely have access to clean drinking water, and then it would provide them clean water to drink and or bathe at very little cost. And you'll see at the very bottom down there in the conclusion, the last sentence that she gives them is what I tell my kids they need to give, which is a call to action. And that is appealing to the pathos. So next time you see a homeless person, ask yourself when the last time was that he had a clean drink of water. So just right against that guilt, just right there in the heart. And that really will deliver a very powerful speech. And she did very well. So the most important part is the rule of primacy, and that is that we remember the first thing that an audience hears us and the last thing that we tell them. So we make sure in that time that we give them a thesis statement. So this is the thesis statement that Ashi gave. I'll let you guys read that. Pretty impressive, right? Yeah, it is a guilt trip. That's exactly what it is. But it wins, so what are you going to do? All right, so she's given us our main idea is this is what we're going to do, this is how it's going to help, and why it is a good idea. The significant harm and plan. I also tell my students that if you're telling them that first we're going to do this and then second we're going to do this, you need to make sure that you do it in the order that you say in your thesis statement. So hit each point from the order of your thesis statement, the main idea statement that you've got. And that's essential whether you're writing or you're giving a presentation. I call it pre-structure, and kids who are able to do it well, those are the kids who get, you know, really high scores on AP exams. Those are the kids who ace their presentations. It's one of those things that if you're able to communicate effectively, you're able to pretty much go anywhere with it. I tell my kids all the time, if you're the smartest person in the room, but no one knows it, then it doesn't matter because they're not listening to what it is that you have to say. If you're not able to communicate effectively and comfortably, then what you have inside, the gift that you have inside, what genius idea that you have inside no one is going to get that gift. And you have a responsibility to be able to communicate that gift. And that's essentially what we teach. We teach them, this is how you're comfortable. This is how you become a leader. So like I said, I always tell them to leave their audience with a parting thought, give them a good impact, because they will remember the first thing and the last thing that you tell them. So this is what Ashi had for her parting thought, which like I said, I think is really good. And I'm going to go back to that really quickly. So I think one of the things that I really love about this particular parting thought is that not only does it appeal to pathos, and yeah, you're exactly right, it's totally a guilt trip, but it, I think, focuses on what we really want our kids to be, and that's, we don't just want you to be smart, we don't just want you to go and be in a job, we want you to be kind. And that's what speech and debate events and writing events do, is they expose kids to aspects of the world that are maybe something they haven't encountered before. Like maybe they'd never thought about homeless people in Atlanta before, but encountering this in a speech and debate event, now they do have to confront it. And it teaches them empathy in ways that we never thought of, so that they can be creative in their empathy and they don't have to feel overwhelmed by all the things that are going on in the world that they can't fix. They can think creatively of ways to actually affect change, which I think is probably the most important thing that we can teach our children. So general speaking pointers. I know all of you have at some point in time probably either had to give a speech or you will have to give a speech. So I won't just want your kids to take anything away from this. I want you guys to be able to take anything away from this. So I'm going to give you some general speaking pointers that you can use, just some quick little tips if you have to give a presentation in front of other people. So the first thing is I tell my kids, make sure that you go in with a map. And then they look at me and they go, what's a map? Because they're used to GPSs. They're like, what is that? I don't understand. I remember when Yahoo Maps first came out, you would type in the address and then you would print out a piece of paper with like 50 directions on it and try and follow those and drive simultaneously. So a map for writers and speakers is your outline. Make sure that you have that outline before you approach. You wouldn't just get into a car and say, I'm going to drive to Key West, Florida, and hope that you get there. You would have some way to know. You have to have a GPS. So you have to have some direction to figure out where you're going to go. The next thing is to try to avoid fillers. Our students have a tendency to use... Oh, I went out for a minute. Are you guys still with me? Give me a smiley. You still with me? I went out for a minute on me. So are you okay? Okay. All right. Just want to make sure. So our kids have a tendency to give us weight. It's almost as though the world is going so quickly with the internet. They're trying to tell everyone, like, slow down, slow down. They use weight as fillers. When I was growing up, the big filler was ums. I would all the time. I still occasionally If you become aware of it and you practice as a speaker, you will do that less often. When you start realizing it, you cut yourself off from doing it, and you're going to do it less often. You may find that you pause, but that's okay. It's okay to pause. People in a presentation, you have to remember, do not want you to fail. They don't want you to fail because, one, they don't want to see a bad presentation because that's not fun, and two, they don't want you to fail because it makes us as an audience very uncomfortable. Okay, like is a big one too. Like was actually more a little bit later after I was coming up through school. They would wait, that was a big. They would just one right after the other, right? So now it's wait. They just use wait for everything. In fact, I challenge you guys tonight with your students. I challenge you every time they say the word wait before they speak to you, say for what? Make them aware of the fact that they keep saying the word wait. You'll be astonished how often they say it. They say it all the time. The next one is, that should say if you get stuck. The shoes got in the way, I guess, this sort of, when the slideshow transferred over. It happens to everyone. At some point in time in your speaking career, or if you're in front of an audience, You will stand up in front of them, and everything that you are about to say will come tumbling out of your brain, and you will stare at them and not know what to do. Look down at your shoes and silently, don't do it out loud because that's weird, silently count to 3. It feels like forever, but your audience is going to be patient with you. They're going to wait for you because we've all felt that way before. With my younger students, sometimes we have a tendency to have an attack of the giggles, and that's not uncommon. I tell them to stop, look at their shoes. 1, 2, 3, look back up. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, isn't that 3 seconds that they could be talking about their topic? No. If they're stuck because they can't stop giggling, or they're nervous, or they feel kind of fainty, or they've forgotten everything that they're going to say, it's not 3 seconds that they could have been talking because they were stuck. And so the way to sort of unstick your brain is to focus on something that you know is there, and that is your feet are there. So look down at your feet, give yourself 3 seconds. Your audience is not going to pelt a tomato at your head, I promise. And then look back up. So lastly, because I want to make sure that you remember, rule of 3, right? The important part of this presentation is why should we participate in these activities of writing and public speaking? What is the goal of focusing on language? It increases college acceptance. It helps them become leaders, not only in school and the classroom, but also future leaders. And it fuels them to think in ways they've never thought before. This is going to teach them to be a 21st century learner, someone who is able to learn, unlearn, relearn, and then solve the problems that we don't know even exist yet. So being able to train their brain and to respond under these constraints that create creativity, that is ultimately the goal of public speaking, of timed writings, and ultimately, I think, of the goal of our academy. So this is my source material, and I'll send that over to Ram too so that he has access to it. There's some video sources down there at the bottom. If you want to take a picture, you can do that. But like I said, I'll send everything over to Ram so that you guys can have access to it. And I'm just going to hand everything back to Ram. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys enjoyed my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Lack and Mrs. Kohanim, for your time and for that wonderful presentations on critical thinking in math and on public speaking and writing. And thanks everyone for joining on a Saturday afternoon. And this shows how committed are you for your children's education. And my apologies for a little bit of technical difficulties for a couple of minutes. This is the first time we are doing on an online format. And Dr. Lack and Mrs. Kohanim have been doing in person in Atlanta for a long time, and they did several times here. So at the request of many parents, we tried this online. We hope it's useful. I did not put a Q&A because with a large audience online, I'm not sure how it's going to work, but would like to do this again sometime in future. I would like to get your feedback. Feel free to send the feedback just as an email to me. I might send a feedback from just an email. I'll pass it to Dr. Black and Mrs. Kohanim. And we are also recording this session. For those of you who had technical difficulties, as well as those who could not join, I'll try to make this available on our website. I need to figure out how to do it. This is the first time we are doing. And I'll also probably look at some other tools. This is this particular tool called Click Meeting. Not sure whether those technical difficulties are because of the Click Meeting or because of the internet issues, but we'll evaluate other tools as well for future. And if you have any questions as well as feedback, please do email it to me and I'll pass it to Dr. Lack and Mrs. Kohanim. All right, with that, I think we actually finished 13 minutes ahead. Thank you all. Bye. Have a good rest of the weekend. Bye. Thank you.